Hi, I'm Govindh Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 362, and the 36th edition of the Edge of the Napkin series. In this Edge of the Napkin series, we talk about various ideas that go beyond the 1,000 napkins. I step back from conversations, from the insights shared by entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers, and connect the dots. One of the dots I'm connecting today relates specifically to the magnetic leadership framework. When you sit with these many perspectives over time, you start to notice patterns, not just in business and people and leadership, but in ourselves. And this week, I found myself in one of the situations where calm was harder, let's say, to find than it should have been. It wasn't a loud situation. It wasn't an explosive one. It was the one that kind of looks normal from the outside, but inside there's a pull. And the pull was beyond a need to respond or clarify or finish. It was one of those moments where someone pointed something out to me. It was simple, it was direct, and it was, you need to have the last word. And you might already know how a sentence like that can stay with you because it's not about the words, it's about what's true underneath them. So, in this conversation, we're going to explore something that most people don't think about when they think about calm. The idea that calm isn't just about how you speak, it's about whether you need to speak at all. It's about whether you need to win or whether you're willing to be open enough to understand and understand what it actually means to give away the last word and still feel like you were connected. So if you're ready, let's get to the edge of the napkin and dive in. There's a moment right after someone finishes speaking when something inside you wants to respond, not to understand, not to correct, but to finish it, to close it, maybe to win it. So here's my question. What does it actually mean to be calm when everything inside you wants the last word? So most people think that calm looks like silence. They they think it's not about reacting, not about raising your voice, not about escalating. And while that might seem calm, it's not calm. It's restraint. And restraint is often just tension waiting for its next opportunity to jump out and win. Because underneath it, the conversation is still being scored. Who made the better point? Who landed harder? Who got the last word? We don't say it out loud, but sometimes we feel it. And when you feel the need to get the last word, you're not in the conversation anymore. You're in a competition. So here's a reframe. Calm is not the absence of noise. Calm is the absence of the need to win. And that's the shift. Because the moment you need the last word, you've already left calm. You've entered control. You've entered ego. You've entered a version of leadership that is trying to assert and not understand. It's not a conversation anymore. And here's what I've been noticing about myself. Calm isn't just one of the pillars of the magnetic leadership framework, it's the gateway. Confidence without calm becomes force. Congruence without calm becomes rigidity. And contribution without calm becomes noise. Calm is what makes the other three pillars safe to receive. It's the container. The fastest way to break that container is to fight for the last word. So this is a fun story. When I was younger and early in my business career, I had a painting company and we'd go from job to job and I'd listen to radio. And on the radio, there was a segment that used to come on and it was hilarious. It almost always started a same way with this deep voice, and it was a slow, confident, ridiculous voice. It was the story of the champ. Now, the champ was this fictional wrestler, boxer, something in between. We never even knew what it was. And the story followed the same pattern. The champ would misunderstand something about common language, a double entendre, something on one word that could mean two different things. And it was usually something small and something said by his sidekick, Knuckles McGee. And instead of clarifying, instead of asking, he'd react over the top. He'd explode. He'd completely misunderstand what was said and then go on to absolutely demolish Knuckles. Verbal, physical, didn't matter. And at the end of every story, after completely overreacting, he'd say, ever since I've been the champ. And that was the joke, the irony. The champ thought he was winning because he had destroyed Knuckles over this misunderstanding, but he was just reacting. And there was one story that always stuck with me. Maybe it's because it's the most memorable because of the joke and the hook. The two of them go tuxedo shopping, the champ, Knuckles, and Mrs. Champ. And they're getting ready for a wedding. So they're looking for tuxedos. Champ comes out wearing a tuxedo, and Knuckles says, hey, Champ, I see you got your ass caught around your neck. And Champ hears something else. He hears, obviously, ass caught around your neck. He pauses and says, I said pardon. Knuckles repeats it. And now Champ is convinced he's being insulted, and that's it. He goes, I lose it. Flurry to the solar plexus, total overreaction. And then at the end, calmly and confidently, he says, and ever since I've been the champ. So that story has been living in my head for years, and I laugh every time I think about it. But recently, it started to show up a little bit differently because I saw myself in it, not in the explosion, but in the moment before the explosion, the moment where something is said, and I felt the need to clarify, respond, finish it, and get the last word. And that's the moment. That's the edge. That's where calm either exists or it disappears. And here's what I've learned. Calm is the gateway to support. When I'm calm, I can let the other person finish. In fact, I open the door and ask them to finish, not just their sentence, their thought, their feeling, their position. I don't need to interrupt. I don't need to redirect. I don't need to improve their argument. I can support, not fix. And that's calm. And calm is immense power in that context. Confidence leads to feedback. When I don't need the last word, I can give feedback cleanly, directly, without charge, without accusation, without blaming, because I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to contribute. I'm trying to participate and be with someone, and that's confidence. Congruence leads to accountability. When I let go of the need to be right, I can be accountable for how I show up, not just what I say, because congruence isn't about winning an argument or a conversation. It's about aligning your behavior with your values, even when it costs you the last word. Contribution shows up as encouragement. When I'm not competing in the conversation, I can actually encourage the other person. I can invite their perspective. I can create and maintain safety because contribution isn't about adding more words. It's about creating space. That wasn't theoretical for me. This showed up over and over again in real conversations, family conversations, ones with my son, my wife, either of my sons actually, and my wife and my daughter. The kind where, if I'm honest, I should be the calmest person in the room, and I wasn't. And these are rooms where I'm constantly reminded how calm I can be in other situations. Why am I not bringing that same calm here? And I thought that by being quiet in my voice and restrained, that it was the same thing. But I wasn't calm. I noticed something. Though I wasn't yelling and I wasn't aggressive, I was finishing. I was getting the last word. I was correcting perceptions every time, adding something, clarifying something, correcting something, getting in the last word. And someone pointed out, oh, was Stacy pointed out that that and it wasn't harsh, but she was just being honest. Why do you need to get the last word? Why do you need to put that in there? And it landed for me because it's not about the words. It's about what the words are trying to do. And those words are trying to win, even though I was dressing it up in a different way. And winning a conversation is the fastest way to lose connection, to create an unsafe environment. So I made a decision, a simple one, and it wasn't an easy one. I stopped trying to have the last word. In fact, I started trying to do the opposite. I started intentionally holding space to give it away and get curious, not trying to win by giving it away, but truly give it away and end with a question. Is there anything else that we need to do? Is there anything else you need to share with me? Is there anything we need to do about that? At the end of the conversation. And then I'll stop. If they say nothing more, then we're done. If they respond, I don't add anything. I nod, I smile, and I walk away. That's it. And something happens that's I find really interesting in that moment. There's a voice in my head, an old, deep voice, confident, ridiculous, and it says, "Ever since I've been the champ." And I smile because for the first time, that line means something different. Winning isn't getting the last word. Winning is not needing it. Winning is leaving the conversation intact just the way it is. Winning is creating space where the other person feels heard and safe, not handled. Winning is calm, and calm never has to prove itself. It doesn't assert itself. It doesn't need to be seen. It just is. So let's just review 5 key takeaways from this conversation. 1, the need for last word is the need to win. In your next conversation, notice a moment where you want to respond last and pause. Don't be the last word. Calm is not silence. Calm, it is the absence of internal competition. Ask yourself mid-conversation, am I trying to understand or trying to assert, trying to finish, trying to control? 3, conversations are not scored, they're shared. Replace your next correction with a question. Wonder what's going on with them. Leadership is a field and it's not a position. Observe how your presence changes when you don't need to close the loop, when you can leave it open, energetically and otherwise. Number 5, giving away the last word builds trust faster than winning the argument. So end one conversation today with thank you, or ask them if there's anything else they need to share. Ask them if there's anything else that needs to be done about this. There's a version of you that still thinks that leadership is about being right, having the answers, about being heard, being the one who finishes. And there's another version that knows that real power is not in what you say. It's in what you're able to leave open, in what you allow to exist in your field. So the next time you feel it, that pull to close it, to finish it, to win it, to decide it, just smile and let it go. So write it on a napkin, give away the last word, and if it changes something for you, share it. And tag, hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom, because ideas small enough to fit on the napkin are often big enough to change your entire world. Make it a great day.